Hi everybody, it's Kat here for Get Your Rock Out. We're backstage at Moho Live in the middle of Manchester. With me I have Salim from The Devil's Blood, who's kindly given up a little bit of time before his headline show tonight in Manchester. Welcome to Manchester, Salim.
Thank you.
And thank you for the beer, that's very generous.
Cheers.
Cheers. We've got quite a few questions. If we could just start off with, for people who are not already familiar with the band, your 2 albums and a couple of EPs, I think, into the career. Can you tell us about how you created the band?
Well, the band as such, being me and my sister, the creative nucleus of the band, we began somewhere in late 2006, early 2007. We're not even completely sure about that. Something that evolves. And I started writing songs, and after a while, after making a few demos, I asked my sister to join me and sing them for me, which was in our eyes a tremendous success. Gave us a lot of satisfaction, and when those songs, we played them for all our friends, drinking and drugs, all that stuff. We decided to make them a MySpace page and just put them on.
Yeah.
Just see, just not even to see what happens, but more or less, and then we can send the link to friends and have a listen. That's it. We went on with that for the first 4 songs, put them online. Didn't think about it anymore. A few months later, after not checking the account for a while, we did, and there was like tons of people wanting to be friends, and people wanting to sending messages and asking for stuff and T-shirts, which we didn't have, for albums which we never thought we would record. And basically, from there on, we started to view our options, basically, and say that, well, if being creative and doing nothing else except what we want is already giving us these prospects, let's see how far we can actually take it. And now we're here.
Yeah.
And with two records and a few EPs later.
Yeah. This is a really interesting story. So it sounds like, did you start out this project for yourselves primarily, without any big plan?
Never any plans. We still really don't make any plans. We leave that to the bookers and the managers.
Yeah.
What we do is take everything at we try to judge every opportunity on its own merits. If we think it holds, if it makes sense, if we want to do it, if we think it's, for want of a better word, fun, then we'll go for it.
You'll do it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, well, a bit later I'd like to get on to all aspects of the band, performances, the new album certainly. But first, could I take you on a trip back in time to when you were getting into music yourself, because I realise you are responsible for a lot of the creativity on the music and the lyrics within the band. What was the first stuff that got you into music?
Well, the first thing that really resonated with me, that really touched the strings of my heart, so to speak, was quite cliche for someone in his early 30s. Iron Maiden, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Kiss, Black Sabbath. Later on, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, but also Morbid Angel. So really, I was, I think in my early to mid-teens, I was just a metalhead, and especially when black metal came along, for me, the second wave, early 90s to 95, 96. That's when I bought I think maybe 30 or 40% of the records that I still own. So it's I've become a lot more how do you say,
diverse?
Yeah, no, absolutely more diverse, but also a lot more critical about what I do buy and what I don't buy.
Yeah.
So music has become such an overwhelmingly large entity for me that you have to make your choices. Yeah. But in those days, it was just grab everything you can get a hold on. If it looks slightly like something that you might enjoy, just take it with you and see where it ends up. Yeah. The first records that I actually bought myself were the first Black Sabbath album, Kiss, Harder Than Hell.
Yeah, that's 2 very different albums.
Yeah, but 2 very, 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 very good ones. Yeah. And both of them are still, among my maybe in my top 10 of all times. Yeah. Guns N' Roses was also always been a very big inspiration, as at least certainly when it comes to wanting to make music myself.
Yeah.
I suppose that's really when I saw them doing on stage what they were doing.
Yeah.
This bravura. This.
They have a real presence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
well,
your band does as well. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. And moving on to your own music. I first discovered your music about literally 1 week ago. First noticed the band on the back of a absolutely stunning review you had in a major rock magazine within the last year or so, at a gig in London, which I think was Camden Underworld.
Yeah.
And I've lived with the new album for 1 week, and it's very difficult to actually pigeonhole this band. But I can see some of the influences, some of which you already mentioned. Could you attempt to, in your own words, sum up what you do? It's no easier for you when you make music.
Yeah. Well, the not wanting to send you home without an answer on that question, I think the spiritual aspect of the Devil's Blood is so overwhelmingly important that I am always much more concerned with the absolute clarity and perfection of what I am making than its actual style. And to clarify that a bit, I mean to say that I could care less how it sounds. I could care less what kind of songs I write. I just sit down, work, and create.
Yeah.
And that process yields this.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you where it comes from, because I can hear influences of bands like Shadows, and I can hear influences of the Birds, and I can hear influences of Watain or Morbid Angel, as already mentioned, or Iron Maiden, and all of that is probably valid in some way, and probably none of it is, because I think what I would like to believe that I have in common with those bands is that we tap into the void at a certain level, and take our inspiration from somewhere beyond us. And for some people it would be God or the divine or the perfect, and for us it's a slightly darker bent where we find our inspiration. But that's all it is. It's only a means to channel our deep desires to vent. I'm at this point at a very, and I don't want to make this sound like there's going to be a new album within a year or within 2 years, but I'm working at home at just putting some ideas that I have, some small tidbits of inspiration on tape, and it's already sounding completely different than this again. So I really don't know where it's coming from. I don't know where it's going to go, and we'll just see. This
is absolutely fascinating stuff. The thing that struck me about listening to this new album, which by the way listeners is called The Thousandfold Epicenter, is to me, having listened to rock music as well for 30 years, it sounds as if you've been in a world of your own creating this music, because I can't actually reference anything that's remotely similar to this album, certainly in the mainstream of rock music over the last few years. So I
will take that as a fantastic compliment. Thank you.
But a couple of the bands you mentioned there, diverse stuff such as the Birds, jumping ahead to one of the later questions. I look at a song like Everlasting Saturnalia on this album, which if I had to pigeonhole that one, I would probably say Umaguma or something. That's probably where some of that came from. Wish You Were Here, maybe. That would be awesome to hear that one. That would be a very daring song to play live.
Well,
because it isn't exactly Crash Bang Wallop, is it? That song?
Well, we do covers from time to time, and that was one that was very high on the list of things to try. And because we do these weekend tours, like 3 rituals in a row, going places, driving thousands of miles in a car. So we always have a lot of music with us, and that song is the only song that we always play.
Gotta say, it's an absolutely beautiful song, and it. The other impressive thing for me on this album is the amount of variety and different atmospheres on this record. Is that maybe an influence from early Sabbath? If not,
Probably,
the sound,
probably.
The,
I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
arrangements?
it's so hard to tell for me. But you know, yeah, Floyd, Sabbath. I mean, Black Sabbath is a band. I don't consider what we do heavy metal at all.
Neither do I.
But then again, I never truly considered what Black Sabbath did as heavy metal in the early days. For me, it was complete rock and roll. And there is no riff that you can think of that Tony Iommi hasn't beat before, at least 30 years ago. So in a way, there's definitely some of that influence in there. And if not that, then it's the liberated approach to making music that they had in those days.
Yeah.
Which does inspire me a lot. You know, it's like The Doors, Hendrix, Jefferson Airplane, the bands that were out there doing something that, you know, for all intents and purposes, no one had ever done before. Yeah. So they had no idea where they were going, but they didn't let them stop. Yeah. That stopped them to go there anyway.
I would absolutely agree with that. It doesn't sound like any of those bands individually, I've got to say, but I think the way you are going about the art of making the record has similarities with that. There's a sense, a lot of freedom within the songwriting. If I look at you start off this new album with a bit of an epic, a very rockin' song, and then once we get to sort of halfway through this album, you've got the title track there, the 1000-fold Epicenter. There's so much going on in that song. Would you like to talk a little bit about the title track?
Well, that was the bitch of the bunch, I suppose. Definitely the hardest one to do. The easiest one to play by far at this point. But usually when ideas present themselves, in my case, I get struck by lightning, and there is this idea that needs to come out, and usually it's like a verse, a chorus, and lyrics all at once. Like diarrhea coming out of my mind almost. And when it settles, I go about the more mundane task of seeing, well, okay, so how many choruses do we have, how many verses do we have, where is the bridge going to be in the song. All that's like kind of variable, because that's strangely enough not essential for the basic structure of the song. That's all like, how do you make it to be as good as it can, but the principle stays the same. And in this case, I had the principle locked down in 5 minutes.
Really?
And I spent the better part of a year to actually arrange the rest. Yeah. And rejected at least 5 or 6 different versions of it.
It's almost a song in about three movements, and it's got a really...
it changed in the studio. In the day of recording, we changed it, some parts again. So.
It's got a really unusual but yet catchy vocal melody as well. It's a very original song, I've got to say. Just one or two other questions about the album again. The final track on the album, which is a song called Fever Dance. Listening to this a few times, it's got an almost ritualistic aspect to this when you listen to it. Have you played that one live yet?
No.
Okay.
The logistics in that one are just too horrifying to consider. It is a ritual.
There's a lot of orchestration. There's some orchestration on the album as well.
Yeah, and it all culminates into that piece, obviously. And we are contemplating, because we've done this in the past, if the version that was recorded in the studio might not always be. You will see that tonight. If you listen to previous work of ours, you can see that in certain songs we really change the way that we approach them. Simply because of the fact that sometimes the discipline of recording something in the studio yields something that is almost impossible to do live. Yeah. And we don't want to work with tapes, we don't want to work with samples, so we find another way. Yeah. And this is what I meant earlier with the structure of the song being intact, so you can basically do with it what you want. You have this freedom. Yeah. And this is virtually no song that's on the set list is played the same way as on the album. Wow. We it's just not that we don't want to, but they seem to have a life of their own. The way I've described it earlier to different journalists in the following way is that for a lot of bands, the writing process of a song is the life of the song. Yeah. It grows and matures and develops, and then it gets put on the record, and it will stay like that for millennia to come. Yeah. Which is great, if that's the way you want to do it. For us, the process of writing a song is more like being how do you say, carrying the song in your womb, you know, and allowing it to develop to the point where it can get born, which is the album's release, and then it might veer off slightly this way, veer off like that way. You know, it could be a cross-dresser later on, or a homosexual. You never know. You never know. And you should always allow your children to be free.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks for that. We've talked about the album, and thanks for giving me a big insight into the creative process around that. If we could talk about another aspect of the band briefly. I bought this album on CD, but I'm very tempted to buy it on vinyl for several reasons, not least the artwork inside the album. It's pretty obvious that a lot of care and love has gone into the artwork, and it's quite far out. Where does the artwork come from? Who helps you do that?
Well, in this case, we've worked with different artists on each record, but in this case there was I'm not allowed to name his name because he chose to work under a pseudonym for this record. And it's a man from Russia, an artist, a magician, a deeply dedicated occultist, who I originally met more in that sense of my life than in the musical sense, who basically told us that he would really like to make some artwork for us, and he made a few sketches and he sent them to us, and we were like, yeah, this is really good, so let's do the record together, let's make it together. And what I did is send him I sent him demo tracks and lyrics, nothing else, no hints, no desires, no visual ideas, just.
That's one thing I noticed about the lyrics. I know there's the occult aspect to the band, but having lived with this record for about a week, it seems like the lyrics are fairly open-ended or open to interpretation and quite symbolic in ways. Is that deliberate?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes and no. Because to me they are not open-ended or symbolic. They are almost literal. Except where the truth was simply unpoetic. Yeah. And had to be
stated.
Melted, you know, chiseled a bit. But I don't think that what I put in there, and you know, let's consider that for a moment my truth, is your truth. And I don't believe that any truth is truth. I believe that there is only perception. And through magic we learn that perception can be altered. And we also learn that reality can be altered by applying our perception to it. And what I have tried to do is create something that can give people a nudge into a certain direction, into a certain freedom of mind, to allow themselves the self-reflection to, you know, to see what this all means to them, and to find a truth there, and not my truth, not even, you know, not even as it comes to my belief patterns, because, you know, I completely believe that even a Christian or a Buddhist could find something of extreme value in there, which is actually a story.
I think that's another strength of the album.
It's open. It's suggestive, and I try to keep it as suggestive as possible. I never want to the word pigeonhole again. I don't want to be pigeonholed. I want to be free. That
definitely comes out in the music, really, really loud and clearly, I've got to say. Conscious of time, just want to touch on maybe finally the live performance as well. I've only had a limited chance to watch one or two clips on YouTube, I guess, as everybody does, but there does seem to be a very quite formidable presence by the band as a unit, and there's a little bit of theatricality going on there. Do you want to tell us about where that comes from?
Well, every ritual in and of itself needs to have some kind of theatrical approach, in the sense that I think that all theatrical things are taken from ritualistic things. And what we try to do is to create an atmosphere wherein people can allow themselves to let go of the day.
Yeah.
Let go of themselves, of their personalities, of their many crutches, but also of their many chains, everything that keeps them up and holds them down at the same time, and to allow themselves to perceive themselves as they maybe truly are for just maybe a small moment, maybe if it's only for like a millisecond, it would be enough to set them on a course which will change their lives. And the way to do that for us is a very austere and serious approach. We do not communicate with the people. We allow them to make their own conclusions, so we will not tell them what it is we are doing.
It was quite clear watching just a couple of clips, there's no rock star bullshit going on here, is there?
We try to steer clear from that as much as possible, which doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it when other bands do it, because hey, I already told you I'm a big Guns N' Roses fan. So.
And I bet you're on time on stage tonight. Okay.
I hope so.
Okay, I think my time's about up here. So thank you so much for giving up your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your
I was going to ask you about plans, but you just basically said the plan is whatever it is and whatever floats your boat. But maybe do you intend to do any festivals in the UK anytime soon?
Well, we really hope so. There are a couple out there that we find interesting, that we applaud to contact us. At this point, though, we're going to concentrate on Europe a little bit more. After this, we go to Dublin, and then we go to Germany again, Holland again, and then we go to America for a month. And after that, we are going to do some festivals later this year. And then again, we hit the tour, the club scene again. And I really hope to be able to come to Great Britain in the club format in the end of the year.
Well, that would be absolutely awesome.
That's
I think the good thing about the music that you create is you could get an invite for any type of rock festival potentially, in my opinion, whether it's a dark metal festival or a progressive rock festival or anything could. It looks like all doors are open for you, basically. So once again, thanks for your time. I really am very excited to see the band shortly. So that's it, folks. This is the Cat for Get Your Rock Out at Moho Live with Selim from The Devil's Blood. The new album, once again, is called The Thousandfold Epicenter, and I've got to say this is an early contender for Album of the Year for me personally. So thanks everybody. Cheers, Selim. Thanks for the beer.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Okay.